Hey, it's Jeremy from jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. And if you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And that's at GERIMI. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. So I am going to be exhibiting at WonderCon in Anaheim this coming weekend, the 28th through the 30th. So I'm trying to finish up some sketch cards. I'll have a little bit of original art here to sell. And hey, James is in the chat. Good to see you, James. I hope you saw the post that I was going to be starting late today. It's just one of those days where I got up, slept longer than I probably should have, and just, needed a little bit more time before rolling out of bed and getting onto it. But anyway, this was a sketch card that I was working on. I don't think I was even working on it during this stream last week. I think I just started working on this piece because I needed a little bit of mental headspace to do some fun art. And anyway, before starting on the next sketch card, I'm just going to go in here and just erase a little bit of the pencil lines. And I'm still trying to decide whether I want my sketch cards to just be raw and intentionally messy, because generally I like pencil marks and sketch marks, and I like seeing construction lines in a piece. By the way, this is a Sakura electric eraser. They're a little bit more expensive, I think, than the ones that I haven't looked at the prices lately, but I bought these a long time ago. But I think whereas you can normally get some of these for like 10 or 15 bucks, I think the Sakura ones are probably like 20 or 30, but the quality is noticeable. It works better. I'm much happier with it. I have bought 2 of these in my lifetime. The only reason why the first one died is because I dropped it on a hard concrete floor, and I messed something up inside of it. The original one never quite worked right. But that was how I came to the decision that this is my brand, because I bought a couple of different electric erasers to replace the original Sakura that I had, and I just did not like them. So these things, the motors are great, very powerful. They come with a ton of extra tips when you finish up these. I probably have more than I will be able to use in a lifetime, but that's fine, because as long as I keep doing this, I'll keep using the Sakura electric erasers. And no, that's not a paid sponsorship. I'm just calling them out because I like them and they're awesome. So next sketch card. Let me grab my sketchbook here. Oh yeah, James says, it says, if I don't see it under your events, I keep an eye out. Yeah, usually if I know when I'm going to do it, I usually like to post when the next stream is going to be the same day as I finish the previous one. But with my schedule being so irregular lately, I just, I've just been posting and streaming as I can work it in schedule-wise. But, like I said, in April, I hopefully plan to get back to my regular schedule. So my lovely Florence sketchbook here, I've got some thumbnails, and there's a bunch in here. I've got one I wanted to do that's like half Miles Morales, half Static Shock. There's a little Ghost Rider thumbnail in here, a Superman. I've never been happy with any drawing I've ever done of Superman in my life. I don't know. He's not a character that I really get to draw that well. And then just another Spider-Man right here. And he's the Peter Parker Spider-Man, but I'm thinking of maybe trying that same pose as both Peter and Miles. Let's see here. So Daredevil in there. And I wanted to do a Hulk, like a big monstrous Hulk, and do it as a vertical one where he's kind of like taking up a bunch of the cards. What I was planning to do now was I was going to do a second Black Panther. So the first one I did was this one. The next one I'm going to do is this. And I like doing ones where I've got the face kind of partially cropped and the character really filling in the frame. So I'm going to do this one next. Now, in order to do this, I need to take a couple of these clips and clip my sketchbook open, and I'm going to put it up sort of out of the camera range, so it'll be out of my way of my drawing area so I can look at it while I sketch the new one. So let's see here. So James says, getting my pass for Cinejoy. It's an online version of CineQuest, which I attended a few years back in San Jose. I did the last Cinejoy in 2023, but didn't get a pass because I didn't know I could. I'm excited to see what filmmakers have up their sleeves. So I'm taking it is a film festival, presumably an indie film festival. That sounds actually really cool. I want to actually maybe check that out. Let's see here. And he says, I'll have to see how casting for my desktop TV to living room goes. For some reason, and I don't know if it's an issue with me because I'm on a Mac, but I found a lot of times there's certain apps, like normally casting stuff to the TV works fine, but if it's something that's in an exclusive app or something where they don't want people recording or rebroadcasting, the only way I can do it is if I have a HDMI to VGA connection, and then we'll connect directly to the TV. Just casting doesn't seem to work for me. But like, for instance, schoolism, which I love. This is not a slam on schoolism, but I would love to just be able to be sitting on my couch and cast the schoolism classes to my TV so I can sketch them on the couch. But for them, I can't do that. I have to actually physically connect my my laptop to the TV and share and mirror the screen. And I get that because they're selling a subscription service that they don't want people just, recording the classes and then reselling them or sharing them with people who don't have subscriptions. I get it. I am not in any way throwing shade. It's simply an inconvenience. So just get a frame in here. And another thing that I am trying to play with is how messy I'm going to be with these sketch cards. Because, I've said before, what's weird is I just watched a really long video on the 2080 comics YouTube channel. There's a guy who's going through and interviewing a ton of 2080 artists. And I watched like a 90-minute interview with Simon Beasley. And if you've ever seen Simon Beasley's work, it's like, imagine Bill Sienkiewicz on crack. Like, it's in the same painterly, expressionistic world that Bill Sienkiewicz does, but it's like the really cartoony, distorty Bill Sienkiewicz stuff. That's where he starts. He starts there and really goes like all out with it. And it reminded me of the fact that the reason why I am not a particularly clean artist, I'm a messy artist. The reason why a lot of the stuff I've been doing lately, not lately, but over the past few years has been cleaner is because a lot of times I would use messiness to hide the flaws in my drawing. So I wouldn't do clean work, but I realized I need to understand the fundamentals, the structure, the anatomy, the volume, the lighting. And so I've been working cleaner to try and understand that. But as I'm getting more and more confident in the structure of my figures, I'm thinking, what if I did a sketch card that has more of a Kent Williams feel? So, I say that I bring these cards out, which if anything, this is probably more inspired by Brian Stelfreeze and all the covers that he's done for Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther. I'd say at this Storm, if anything, I don't think I've ever seen Chris Samnee draw Storm, but I love Alex Toth, and Chris Samnee to me is like the modern day Alex Toth. So, those are two guys I think I'm currently heavily influenced by. But I want to see what happens if I start shifting back into looser, sketchier work, both in terms of speed, but also just, stylistically. I don't know. It's weird to be this late in my career and say, oh, I'm still evolving as an artist. But I think we should all continue to evolve. And yeah, James confirmed the Cinejoy is a film festival. And hello, Red. Red says Bob Ross used to be a drill sergeant. And he said after he retired from his drill sergeant career, he promised himself that he'd never yell again. Now, see, that I would never have guessed that about him. And that's a very beautiful, sweet thing to hear. And Red says, I like messy art. He says, it gives noise like Dave Gibbons. Now, see, that's interesting because I think of Dave Gibbons as a very clean and tight artist. He is also another one of my favorites, not just for Watchmen, but hell, almost everything I've ever seen of Dave Gibbons, like the collaboration he did with Frank Miller on Martha Washington books. I still have never read any of his Green Lantern work, and I know that he's done a ton of like legendary work for like I think I did read the Superman story that he did with Alan Moore, but point is, he's an artist who I greatly admire, as many people do. I definitely don't think of him as a messy artist, but oh yeah, James says Beasley's stuff is a trip. He collaborated with Eastman on a few occasions. Dude, Melting Pot, one of my all-time favorites. Love me some Melting Pot. So definitely love that. I've said before, the problem is I love too many different types of styles. So that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of all over the map as an artist, is because I don't really feel like comic art should be one particular thing. And I don't necessarily want to do just one style of thing. So it is hard for me to make myself just settle down and make the comic or make the art. Because I want to explore, I want to play. So let's see here. I was going to show you some thumbnails that I have taped up to the wall above me of some ideas for just sketches of illustrations, but I've realized I need to just get in here and get started. Otherwise, I'm not going to get very far on this. And I wanted to see if I could actually ink this whole thing during the stream. Let's see here. Red says, and a Crooked Man artist. I forgot the name. It's from the Hellboy franchise. Sadly, I have only read a little bit of the Hellboy. Like I've read maybe the first 4 volumes of Hellboy, and then I didn't stay up with it. I know Duncan Fegredo has done an amazing run on Hellboy, but I haven't had a chance to read any of his. Who else? I want to say that James Herron did some Hellboy stories. And there's another artist I'm thinking of. I don't think Troy Nixie, I don't know if he's done any Hellboy, but I know that he's kind of in that circle of artists because Guillermo del Toro, having done the film of Hellboy, and Troy Nixie, I think his directing debut, I think was produced by Guillermo del Toro. But yeah, if anybody's got great taste in artists, it's Mignola. So it would make complete sense to me that like all of his collaborators would be awesome. And I could see, I've definitely heard interviews where he says he doesn't want people, when they work on Hellboy, he doesn't want people that are Mignola clones. He doesn't want people that are just going to do exactly what he does, because he already does that. He doesn't need another person to do exactly what him. He likes to be surprised and see somebody bring something different. To be honest, I think, going back to Sienkiewicz again, that would be awesome to see a Sienkiewicz Hellboy comic, even a short story. Let's see if I can move this a little bit closer. So based on the thumbnail, the video thumbnail I used for my last live stream, I realized part of the problem of me trying to find an angle where I can show you the drawings up close but at the same time, not. And when I say up close, look at how big my hand is. This is just a regular playing card sized, piece of imagery that I'm working on. Part of the problem was that I kept trying to show you sort of a straight on view so that you're looking through my eyes. And when I took the photo of the storm card that I took a photo from like this angle for the video thumbnail. And I realized, oh, wait, why am I trying so hard to show you the exact angle that I'm trying to draw from? I can get in a lot better if I just put the camera to the side and let you guys, look at it at an angle. It's better for me because now the camera isn't blocking me, and hopefully it is better for you. And I'm just wondering why I'm such an idiot that it took me this long to figure that out. But, better late than never, right? Let's see here. Red said, in talking about the Hellboy Crooked Man story, he said the guy's art style is like sandwiched together in a neat, symmetrical place. Let me write down a little note on myself. Sandman, Hellboy Crooked Man. You know what? And maybe the Crooked Man name is what was throwing me off, because aside from James Herron, the other artist I was trying to remember, I don't know if he's done Hellboy, but I'm pretty sure that Tyler Crook has also done BPRD stories. And that, I think, was the other name I was trying to remember. That was another name that I was trying to remember in terms of, awesome artwork from that Hellboy world. I mean, just every artist that Mignola has had work on his franchise has been amazing. And Taz says, James Herron, Black Flame, awesome book. I'm going to write down Black Flame. I'm going to look that up. Because mostly I know him from Ultra Mega, which I have not read yet, but it's one of those books where it's been on my list to read for a long time. Between that and his Hellboy work, he's one of those guys where it's like, I see him, I see his work, and I'm like, I need to get into this, and just haven't found the time. But I'm going to write down the Black Flame and check that out. See, there's so many amazing artists in the comic industry that it's like it's hard to keep up. There are so many books that I want to read and make time to read, make time for. Now, see, this is what's interesting, because I'm in this zone right now where I'm kind of cartooning. And yes, Black Panther is a Kirby character, but, the idea of not necessarily worrying about whether the proportions are correct or make sense, and more saying, how does this drawing feel? So I'm trying to kind of like sculpt a look and feel for this character that works, that looks cool, that I'm happy with. And I'm kind of trying to keep in mind like that I don't need to force this figure into normal human proportions, because my instinct is really to correct it and say, oh, well, the head wouldn't look like this from this angle. The skull would turn at this place, or just the shape of the bones would do this instead of that. And I'm trying to let myself turn off that need to correct anatomy and fix anatomy, and just say, does this work for the drawing? Does it look fun? Because, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. Like, I know I am not an anatomical master. And there's some people that I talk to and they're like, wow, you know so much anatomy. And it's like, yeah, I've been taking figure drawing classes for a year. But you fall into there's a trap that you can fall into. And that trap is when you learn enough about what things should or should not look like, that you spend all of your time trying to push the drawing into correct anatomy, and you miss out on so much amazing opportunity and character and design that would just happen if you could just get out of your own way and stop trying to fix everything. And I think that I am very much in that stage where I spend so much time trying to fix things that are quote unquote wrong, where if I just let the wrong things be there and pursued what makes the drawing feel cool, I draw faster and better. So it's a weird place to be in, because when you know you're not a master, but you know enough that you're trying to fix the things, and sometimes the attempt to fix just makes things stiff. So, that's the battle that I'm on. Let me scroll back up and see what else. Okay. James Heron. I mean, not James Heron. We've been saying James Heron again. James again says, I'd like to see Del Toro make a Swamp Thing movie. That would be really, really interesting. I know that I'm pretty sure that under James Gunn running the studio, Swamp Thing is one of the things they're developing. I'm not sure who's going to be working on it. But yeah, Del Toro would be a great, amazing choice for that. Yeah, right now I can't really think of who else would be somebody that I'd like to see do a take on a Swamp Thing in terms of directors. But I mean, I'm also a fan of just the idea of an unknown filmmaker, somebody who I've never seen before, getting a shot at, doing some amazing work with a character like Swamp Thing. I don't necessarily like. I like the idea of being surprised, having somebody who seems like they came out of nowhere that I've never heard of, and they just come in and blow people away. I'm trying to play here with negative space in that instead of having the figure enclosed, I'm trying to make the collar that's going around his shirt, I want to leave that open and melting into the white space. So I need to leave enough room for it to frame his head properly here. And then have the parts that come off of those just be shapes that just sort of jut out. Let's see here. Yeah. Red says, I have to check that out. Dylan says, hi, Dylan. Thanks for dropping in. Red asks, have you seen Graham Turner's art? And I am not familiar with Graham Turner. He says he's a painter who paints historical uniforms and armor and putting them in a moment of glory or sad or bored. That's interesting. Oh, Taz says Hellboy, Crooked Man is Richard Corbin. Okay, see, Richard Corbin from Den fame. Richard Corbin, I definitely know. I have some of his old stories that were, I think, from or printed in Heavy Metal magazine. And, I've just picked up some random Dan Corbin books that were from indie publishers over the years. He's one of those like underground artists who also kind of like, he was both underground and mainstream at this. No, I don't think he was ever mainstream because also his content tended to have a lot of sex in it. sex and violence, and played for fun. It wasn't really like it wasn't necessarily exploitative, but it very much was kind of like sexploitation, like 60s, 70s, like sci-fi, women, creatures, fantasy. It felt very much like his comics have always felt like a really cool, like 70s B movie. But yeah, it's interesting now when I think about that comparison, saying it felt like mush, like sand. Like he has an interesting, grainy, look to his work. Oh, and Dylan, happy birthday! Dylan says today is my 27th birthday. I'm glad you're live, fellow, on my birthday. Well, you know what? I wish you a happy birthday, and I hope everyone else, yes, everyone else in the chat is wishing Dylan a happy birthday as well. I hope you have a fun and creative and joy-filled birthday, and I'm happy to share a part of it with you. So happy birthday, Dylan. Let's see. Yeah, Red definitely in there too. Taz mentions, if you want more James Harren, get the first 3 volumes of Rumble with John Arcudi writing. John Arcudi of The Mask fame. That sounds really, really cool. I'm writing. I in my sketchbook. I'm writing down all of these suggestions. I don't know how soon I'll be able to get to reading them, but let me see. Black Flame, and I'm gonna write Rumble next to that. And I'm trying to remember, did John Arcudi also write a lot of the BPRD early comics before? I think Joshua Dysart took over at some point. But I want to say John Arcudi, I thought, started writing the original series, because maybe that's where he and James Harren connected. I don't know. I'm obviously, I'm in no way in the know about how their creative collaboration came about, but I'm just thinking that maybe that's a possibility. All right. I'm just trying to make this feel a little bit more fluid, because this is one of those things where sometimes your rough sketch nails it, and sometimes the rough sketch, you're like, there's something that's like 99% of the way there, but just a little bit off. And I'm trying to fix that before jumping into inks, because we are now at about 30 minutes in, and this would be a great time to switch from penciling to inking. And I am wondering, believe it or not, this is the stupidest thing in the world, but I often wonder about like where to put my signature. Because I like the idea of this coming all the way down to the corner, but let's see here. And I think what I'll do is just have the ink fade out right over here. Either that, or I can just have it up on his shoulder. It's the stupidest thing on earth to be thinking about. Yeah, I think I'll just make this. See, that's the other thing about sketch cards, is you can make stuff rough and simple, and if you screw up, it's like, all right, I screwed up. I'll make another one. The idea that I spent an hour doing a piece of artwork, it's not like I devalue it, but it's like it gives me permission to try things and be like, okay, maybe this will work, maybe it won't. All right, ready for inks. And I'm trying to oh, I forgot. I wanted to put some Wolverine style claw marks up there. some Wolverine style clown. And you know what? No, we'll leave it like that. That's no. I want to have them turn a little bit so that they are angling in. It's a little bit better. All right. Let's see here. Yes, Dylan agrees. A Del Toro Swamp Thing would be great. He says, I have the first volume of Rumble, haven't read it yet. And Red says, imagine Quentin Tarantino made a superhero movie for DC. And says, I think he'll do a bang up job. That would be cool. HJ says, hey, Jeremy, glad I could make it today. I'm glad you made it too. I'm glad I could make it. I wasn't sure if I was going to have time to stream this week. By the way, I can't remember if I mentioned it. At the top of the stream, I did mention I'm going to be at WonderCon next weekend, but I forgot to say I'll be at Artist Alley, table D22. So if you're going to be in Anaheim next weekend, the 28th through the 30th, come by and say hi. Yeah, be nice to see you guys in person. Let's see here. Dylan mentioned not much has happened. Said we had to roll back my birthday since my dad has been having health issues. All my gifts are arriving late, which is okay. Red velvet cake for the win. That sounds delicious and yummy. I hope you enjoy that cake. Let's see here. Taz says, in terms of the Heron Arcudi connection, says that's how they met. BPRD, Black Flame. James is my favorite person to draw Agent Howard. Yeah, I definitely want, like, James Heron is one of those guys who, much like Daniel Warren Johnson, I look at his art and I say, I want to read everything this person does. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. And I realized that the screen is doing it again, where it's showing you the tiny little speck of an arrow over it. And I have to keep remembering to put my arrow kind of off to the side while I'm drawing. Hosseini in the chat. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see here. More birthday wishes for Dylan. And HJ says, unfortunately, I'm stuck in the UK, but I hope your con goes really well, Jeremy. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm curious. I've heard great things about Thought Bubble in Leeds. I don't plan to make any trips over there anytime soon, but I'm just curious from your perspective, if you've made it to that show and whether you enjoyed it. I hear it's a very, very great show. And Tula Latte, I believe, is the organizer of it. And from a creator standpoint, I just hear really positive things. So I'm curious what it's like from the attendee standpoint. I realize before I go in here and start inking, I need to define some of the shadows a bit more, just so I know what I am going to be blacking out. Because I could just black out all of this under here. I want to black out this too, but I want to leave a little line. And I think I'm just going to have that disappear into black. Just let these two meld together. And in fact, this is something I also want to play with, is just letting black meld into black. Like instead of really trying to make shapes stand out and read, to just have places where the silhouette just kind of merges. Yeah, that's enough. I think that I've kind of defined things there pretty well. Although I can tell you it's bothering me. I realize that the eyes are asymmetrical. I'm trying to kind of lower one of the eyes before really throwing the inks in there. Let's see here. Dylan mentions, I wanted to attend, whoops, blew this off the page. I wanted to attend the Arizona Art Fair where Scott and Gary were boothing the day before my birthday, but my dad shot that down real quick, which I was expecting. I'm sorry to hear that. I actually saw, just randomly, I saw Gary's video when he was going down like the booth aisle that he was in Artist Alley and filming everybody real quick. And I saw Scott, a couple of booths down from him. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks so cool. I wish I was over there with them. Well, I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to see them, but hopefully they will be doing more appearances and you will get to hang with them and other members of the Artcaster community that are in the Arizona area. Let's see here. Aeroset is in the chat. Good morning, everyone. How's it going, Jeremy? Good morning to you. Things are going well. Getting in here, doing me a little Black Panther inking. And it's interesting because I would like, I on one hand, I like the idea of inking a piece from beginning to end on a stream, but I thought, the penciling has to come first. So I thought, all right, let me get in here and, get this guy set up. I'm trying to decide how I want these edges to go. Do I actually want to put a line in to frame the top? You know what? I'll leave it off because I can always come back in there and draw it in later. Like I was just trying to decide whether I want to make this sort of a just drawing, since this is going to be black, these claw scratch marks here, like this is going to be black. And I was trying to decide whether I want to leave the rest of the border off and just have these lines. And I am thinking that I'll leave them off, see how it looks, and then decide after I ink the rest of it in. Maybe I want to just not have them in there. Let's see here. Hosseini asks, said, the last time I was in your live, we talked about the new Nosferatu movie. Have you seen it? It was too disturbing for my taste, and I just watched some scenes of it on YouTube. And sadly, no, I have not watched it yet. There is a whole huge list of movies that I want to see. We have Hulu, and I've seen that the one that won Best Picture, Anora, that's available to stream now. I haven't had a chance to watch that. Part of it, I think, is just the fact that it's been a chaotic time for me lately. And for relaxation, my wife and I have been wanting to watch funner stuff. Like, honestly, we've been watching the old sitcom New Girl. We've been watching that on TV. And we haven't really been watching movies. It's kind of like, it's just fun, silly, ridiculous entertainment. And I think that's just been more of what we've been in the mood for. Um, I haven't had time to watch stuff just sitting by myself, and I definitely my wife will watch horror, and she does enjoy a good horror movie, but we just have not been in a headspace where we're like, yeah, let's watch something that's terrifying right now. Um, but yeah, I do. It's still on my list to see. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. Sadly, it's starting to feel like this is one of those situations where I'm going to forget about it and not watch it for like 2 years. I mean, hell, I still haven't even watched the Witch. The only Eggers movies that I've seen are, and again, you said we talked about this last time. The only Eggers movies I've seen are um, The Norseman and The Lighthouse. Which The Lighthouse, very very weird movie. By the way, so for ink, I've got a bottle of Dr. Martin's Bombay Black. However, I will tell you, when I get a ink bottle that I really like, and I really like this bottle, I will just keep reusing it and refill it. And usually, when I refill with Speedball Super Black. Anyway, so I've got a little. I shouldn't be doing this right over the sketch card. I've got a little dropper. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Usually it's stupid, but I have a formula that gives me the exact consistency that I like. I shake up the bottle so the ink is mixed, and then I'll put in 2 drops of water in the base before I put the ink in. Then I put in about 8 drops of ink. So 8 drops plus 2 drops of water gives me a consistency that's fluid, but still gives me a pretty rich black. And if I'm working and I need it to be a little thicker, then I'll just come back in and add another drop or two. If it starts drying up and I have to add another drop of water, then I usually have to add maybe 4 drops of ink to compensate for the amount that the water dilutes it. But let's see here. All right. So HJ says, I've never gone to Thought Bubble, but my dad has, and I remember him saying it's a really good event. I used to go to tons of cons like ICE and Collectormania with him when I was a kid, and they're good. All right, well, that's good to know. I'm happy to hear that. Perhaps someday I will make it to a UK convention. Let's see here. Yeah, Dylan says I saw the Instagram story too for the comic convention that Gary Hodges and Scott Circlin are at. Let's see here. Oh, and Araset says the Black Panther thing looks good. Looks like a little artist trading card thingy. Yes. So I'm doing a convention in Anaheim next weekend, and I don't usually bring too much original art. The thing is, I don't usually do commissions because it requires a level of attention and focus that is really hard for me to do at the same time as actually selling books, actually standing there, engaging with people. Whoops, let me pull this down a little bit. Engaging with people at the convention, being able to talk and share my work, talk about what I made and why. Like, I can do that, and I can do a good drawing. I can't do both at the same time. I mean, to be honest, just being able to talk to you guys while drawing, it pushes the limits of my concentration. But I've been live streaming for enough years that it's kind of like, well, you'll definitely get stuff like what just happened there, where I'll be drawing and then I will pause mid-sentence because I'm like, wait, I need a little bit more concentration to make this line. But when I'm at a convention, the idea of hanging out and talking and engaging in people, engaging in people who didn't come looking for me and having to rope them in, tell them what my comics are about, chit chat with them. the level of concentration that takes, and then being able to switch from that right back to, oh, I need to go into drawing mode. Talking about my process while I'm in the middle of it, that I can do. But switching back and forth between creator mode and presenting mode is so much harder, and it requires so much more attention that I usually just will try to not. At a certain point, I realized I just wasn't happy with the drawings I was doing at when I would do commissions at conventions. So then what I started doing, and my general approach now is, I will take a commission if the person is okay with me mailing it to them afterwards. So I won't finish the drawing at the show. And even this right now, I realized I made a mistake because I should have continued this lower line out to the edge. Fortunately, I have a little bit of whiteout, so I can come in here afterwards and white out this the line that's connecting the frame where these meet, because I want to leave this area open, the part of the collar. But yeah, the trading cards come down to, a good friend of mine, Carl Altstetter. I usually, when I do conventions, he's usually the one I'm tabling with, and he kept telling me, dude, bring original art. The shows will be more profitable for you. At least do that if you're not going to do commissions. And it takes me so long to do a piece of original because I'm a perfectionist. I take too damn long. And so he was the one who said, do sketch cards. They're small. It's low time investment. If they don't sell, it's not a big deal. But also there's something that's a cheaper piece of artwork, so people are more likely to, to want to collect a piece like that. And honestly, I thought that I would be able to get like a whole bunch done before the show, and I just haven't. Because as I'm drawing this now, I'm enjoying it. And I'm thinking, I want to do a Spawn one. I want to do some more, because mostly I've just been doing Marvel and DC characters. And I feel like I want to branch out. And now I realize the other challenge now of inking while I'm live streaming is that if I'm going to stop and look at the chat and look up and see what's going on, I have to clean my brush. Otherwise, the ink is going to dry on there. So I will look up in a second and catch up with the chat. But I want to get a little bit more done on here, blocking in these shadows. And I like the idea of creating a varying line width by switching the size of the brushes that I'm using. But at the same time, I'm making a lot of progress with this this number 2 brush, which is what I usually use for my my holding line, which is sort of the outer frame of the figure, the silhouette. I usually try to use this larger brush for that, and then move to a 0 for the details. But I think I could pull out all of the I could finish the entire piece with this number 2 brush, because it gives me enough of a point. So apologies, because I'm sure that there are a ton of great comments in the chat, but I want to get a little bit more done before I rinse this brush off and jump back in. All right, let me rinse that for a second, and let's see here. Rinse off that brush. Let's see here. So Dylan says, Black Panther at this angle looks a little bit like a mix between Witch King from Lord of the Rings, and a sun god. It says it's cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. That is high praise. Now, I will admit my ignorance. I am honestly not sure who the Witch King in Lord of the Rings is. I'm not even sure if that's a character from the Amazon series, the Peter Jackson movies, or from the books. I haven't watched any of the TV series, and I know that some people have loved it. Some people are tearing it apart. I mean, I tend to be pretty forgiving. Something, and if something is really bad, I usually just don't talk about it one way or the other. But it is interesting. It's just, again, if there's anything that I'm probably going to watch right away, it's going to be season 2 of The Last of Us when that starts up again. Other than that, I just time. I'm in a weird time wormhole in terms of media and entertainment. HJ says the new Nosferatu film is crazy. Says I went to see it on the first date. No wonder that fell through. Great film though. You know what? The way I look at it, that's a good test of whether you and that person are a good fit. I think the problem is a lot of times people go into dates saying, how do I make this person like me? How do I get this person to want to see me again? And as somebody who's been married for a decade now, the thing that I wish I understood when I was younger, and the thing that really works in our marriage, is the fact that finding somebody that really fits with you. It's not about pursuing someone that has certain qualities. It's literally, you don't want to have to put on a show or change. You don't want to have to change who you are to be with someone else. What you want is someone who passionately loves who you are. Hopefully they love who you are and they love who you want to grow into, because again, we're all works in progress. We all continue to grow and change. And ideally you want somebody that can grow and change with you in a positive way. See, Aeroset says, LOL, I'd say it's an excellent first date film. See, right there. That's the thing. You want somebody who's going to watch, Nosferatu with you. And I know that, like I said, my wife will watch it. We're not in a place right now where mentally or emotionally we need super disturbing entertainment. But we're going to get there. See here. Aeroset says The Witch is excellent. Lighthouse, damn, that was crazy. Love me some Willem though. I mean, Willem, he is amazing in everything he does. I mean, from something like as wacky as like the Steve Zissou Life Aquatic, the Wes Anderson movie. Just like everything, he does such a weird range of amazing characters, like nutty characters. When you see him do somebody that's actually just sort of a sweet, sort of normal person, it's almost like you're waiting for him to freak out. And you're like, oh no, he's just being a normal guy. But yeah, like even something like the Paul Schrader movie Autofocus, that is a weird ass creepy movie, and it is in no way like a supernatural film. It's a film about one of the stars of the old sitcom Hogan's Hero, and how he and a friend of his got into making home adult movies on the side. And it's just sort of like a weird descent into, I guess, toxic obsession with pornography, perhaps. It's a really, really good film. It's a really, really strange film. Again, has nothing to do with Robert Eggers and The Witch. Just an interesting Willem Dafoe film. Let's see here. Dylan says, one of the presents I got is a novel called The Buffalo Hunter. Oh, The Buffalo Hunter, historical fiction. It's Native American vampire revenge story. It came out on March 18th. I've heard it's really good. I just listened to an interview with the author, and I'm trying to remember what podcast it was. I want to say it was Writers Inc. I want to say it was the Writers Inc. podcast, which is it's hosted by J.D. Barker, and as they say in the beginning, a bunch of indie industry powerhouses. But yeah, they just had Stephen Graham Jones on talking about it. And it does sound very interesting. I've heard him on Tananarive Do and Stephen Barnes' Life Writing podcast as well. And he definitely sounds like a very, very interesting writer, interesting human being. And I want to, I want to read that story and more of his work too. So I'm glad you got a really cool birthday gift. Let's see here. Dylan says, I thought The Witch was boring, which is a total bummer for me because I love witch media, and it's rare to see witch media based on historical trials and folklore. Well, you know what? I think that it really comes down to what your tastes are, because I know a lot of people, even though it's not a witch movie, it's more of a creature or werewolf movie. I really loved M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, and so many people hate that movie. And I'm not trying to convince people that they shouldn't. The reasons for disliking it are fair, but I just found it to be this really creepy, intense thriller that, whether you liked the twist of the story or not, I felt like the whole creature thing that was going on in the story, that alone was plenty interesting. So, and I say that because I feel like The Village reminds me of the tone, at least from the trailer, of The Witch, except The Witch seems like it really is like getting into supernatural as opposed to The Village, which, without spoilers, we all know that M. Night Shyamalan's thing is about sort of a bait and switch, twist endings. But now my brain is shutting off a little bit as I'm doing this because I'm sitting here trying to make decisions. That's how you can, when I get quiet, that's how you can tell that I'm actually thinking about what I'm doing. Sometimes inking can be very, just like I said, I can just talk, hold a conversation. I'm just laying down brush strokes. And then sometimes inking really requires I need to decide what I want the finished line to be. And then there's what I started talking about at the beginning of the stream in the idea of wanting to be a little bit more loose and expressionistic and maybe have the style be a little rougher. And then it becomes a question of consciously deciding how much control do I want my brushstrokes to have. And that's a really interesting headspace to be in when you realize that you have the ability to control something and to make an intentional decision to not control it as much, and then having to calibrate, well, how much control do I want to exert over this line, over this shape? How rough do I want to let it be? Do I want to go in there and maybe let my brush, dry it off a little bit, so I get a little bit of dry brush and ragged edge to a shape? Do I want to put a little bit too much ink on there and have it get a little bit of a sloppy, kind of a soupy line? These are all interesting things that my brain is kind of playing with as I'm working. All right, I'm going to fill in this part of the shoulder, and then I'm going to go back and look at the comments. And we're at not quite an hour, so I'll probably go for another 15 minutes, and maybe, I'm pretty close to finishing this card. So that's actually, I'm glad that I was able to do that. I don't know if I'll finish it because I definitely know myself well enough to know that I'll get to the place where I should be done, and I'll be like, oh, let me just add this line. Let me change this. Let me, sculpt or adjust that. And the one thing I got a new camera holder, but this thing continues to bounce as I shake the table. And that's actually the thing I really liked about my previous setup, is that it was a camera arm that was very much locked and really didn't move very much. I could have it attached to a drawing board, and it would hold things just right, just perfectly still. So I'm going to have to play with different approaches. well, hang on. Before I see, that's the weird thing. I will load up the brush with ink, and then I'm like, well, I literally was going to go through more of the chat comments, and I was like, well, I just loaded up the brush. I got this like just right balance of the amount of ink on there. And I'm like, all right, let me make this line and see. All right. I mean, it's pretty good progress for, 30 minutes of inking. I mean, and you look at the reality of that. So I penciled this in 30 minutes, inked it in 30 minutes. So let's say you're drawing a comic book. You do an hour per panel. That means on a 5-panel page, you can finish it in 5 hours, work for 2.5 hours, take a break, work for another 2.5. Let's say it's a 6-panel page, which, that's pretty average. 6 panels, not too many, not too few. You could work in a 3-hour session in the morning, 3-hour session in the evening, and you'd be I like to say that you'd be done. The thing is, some of the panels might be simple headshots. Some might be a cityscape or a crowd scene. So you might immediately run into a panel that one panel could take you like 3 hours if it's an establishing shot. It has a lot of detail, a lot of reference. But if you're drawing things that you're fairly consistently good at drawing, then yeah, you could finish a comic page in a 6-hour session. But that's just me thinking out loud. Let me scroll back up. See, I should have brought Shyamalan into this because I know he's a hot button topic, and now we're gonna go into it deep. All right, let me catch up here. So Dylan says the Peter Jackson movies for the Witch King. They mentioned the comparison on the Black Panther. And it says I forgot the name of the character, so I looked it up. It was the helmet. Dylan says, I hear all the time that movie first dates are so old-fashioned and lame. It says, I'm over here wanting that. Well, see, I will tell you that, like, for me, the most important thing is like being able to, the thing that you don't realize is once the physical attraction part of a relationship, once the novelty wears off, I'm not saying that you're not attracted to the person anymore, but just once the idea of being around someone and dating someone and kissing someone and all the stuff with the new person, once that wears off and you're just being around people, I honestly believe that building a friendship is the strongest thing in a relationship. Being able to sit and talk about things that interest you, books, movies, life, philosophy. Like I remember there was a point years ago where I was hanging out with a bunch of friends of mine and all of us, a bunch of guys, and we had all had relationships that had recently ended. And the thing I realized, I sat there and I was looking at them, I was thinking about the fact that like all three of us made mistakes in those relationships, and all three of us, have made mistakes in many relationships in the past. But I started thinking about the fact that why are we still hanging out together? And yet the women we were dating, we weren't hanging out with each other. And I just, honestly, when it comes to staying friends after a relationship breaks up, more often than not, I found that it's women that are far more interested in that than men are. And I realized the reason why my friends were still hanging out is because men, we do make an, like, you hear things like bro code and stuff like that, but men really do try to take efforts. If they have friends that they really value, generally we try to protect those friendships, and we make a better effort. This is the thing. If we made the effort to not betray or mistreat someone we were dating as we did with someone that we're friends with, then I think relationships would be a lot better. And I realized, oh, that's it. I recognize my friends as friends, and I try to protect those friendships. Whereas dating, you're just like, there's someone I'm attracted to, we're enjoying hooking up, we'll see where things go. And I think if I went into relationship when I was younger, if I had gone into relationships with the idea of, I want to build a friendship with this person, I mean, honestly, the way I look at it now, like times when I was in the friend zone, I'm like, that's actually kind of the best place to start building a relationship from. And that's why there's so many romantic comedies where a couple are like friends for years. Like, what? We're like brother and sister. And then at some point, like one of them gets into a really serious relationship. And that's the point where the other person says, oh my God, I've always loved you. That's why, because we love our friends and we really do go through an effort to protect them. And I think wanting to protect and care and nurture a relationship, that's what a long-term relationship needs. And that's been your dating talk from Jeremy. All right, let me get caught up with the chats. James says, Willem Dafoe and Wildheart. Yes, that was amazing. I haven't seen Wildheart in ages, but I need to go back and rewatch it. And Araset says, I enjoy the concept of the village, but I agree on some of the hit and miss, but the idea was really cool. And James says, I liked Old from Shyamalan. And you know what was interesting about Old is I liked the setup, I liked the premise, and I liked the fact that the twist was that the weird thing that's happening really was happening. It wasn't some other explanation like, oh, that's not really it. I don't know. There's something about the ending that didn't sit with me. But this is what I say when I talk about the fact of Shyamalan being hit and miss and controversial. I like more of his movies than I dislike. There are some movies that people hate that I like, and then there's movies that people hate that I love. And then there's movies where I'm like, okay, I can see why this didn't work for people. So Old kind of fits into a weird gray area for me, but I did watch it, and I enjoyed it for the most part. HJ, yeah, pretty much following what I said. Shyamalan's films are always so divisive. There's no denying his older films like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable and Signs are incredible. I think he's a really underrated modern auteur filmmaker. You know what I really enjoyed was there is a TV series that he produced that I really enjoyed. Something it's not Pine Barrens, but it was something Wayward Pines. That's what it was. And that was a really, really interesting TV series about people who just ended up in this town where they couldn't leave. And it has kind of a under the dome type feel to it. And I really enjoyed the first season. I even enjoyed the ending of the first season. The problem is the second season takes a twist where it ends up following my least favorite character. But overall, the first season was fantastic. So it's here. Dylan says, I bought the special edition of the Buffalo Hunter Hunter from Barnes & Noble. It's signed by Steven and has historic entries based on the events handpicked by Steven. Well, that's pretty cool. And Dylan also says, I saw Part of the Village and I was confused, but I'll have to rewatch. I think Signs is a good movie. I think people complaining that water being their weakness isn't a good argument. They probably never ran into water on other planets and probably not on their planet. Signs, to me, Signs is one of my favorite Shyamalan movies. I mean, the fact that they used an alien invasion to tell an intimate story about a man's loss and a man losing his faith and regaining his faith. I thought that the contrast between the scale of the situation and how intimate the actual course of the main character's journey was, that contrast to me alone, that was the backbone of the story, and it was a very, very strong backbone. So I love that. Let's see here. Dylan says, like, if we go to a planet and stumble upon an element, we don't know if it's going to harm us. Why would it be different with aliens living here on Earth? Let's see here. Dylan says it looks good. Thank you. Glad to hear that. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I said thank you like it was a surprise. It was just me responding to a compliment and trying to sound sincere in the appreciation of it. And Dylan says, I totally agree about romantic relationships need to be friendships or what have you. And it says, statistically speaking, the longest, healthiest marriages are built on friendships. Yes, that I didn't know that was a statistic, but I think it's a very good statistic. I mean, I think that the difference, yeah, it's just, I've seen how people react to, friends are people that you ride or die for. So when you have a relationship that you would ride or die for, I was like, that's I think that that realization was one of the first steps that allowed me to be in a position in life where I could actually properly, where I could be married and be a true partner to my spouse. Um, because I will tell you that when I was younger, I honestly never thought I would get married. And it wasn't out of a, oh, I want to be free to hook up with whoever, or I want to run the streets and party. It is because for as much as I sit here talking with you guys about art every week, I'm a very insular person. And maybe that's why I thrive with being able to do this online and kind of at a distance. But I very much tend to be someone who likes to spend a lot of time alone. And I didn't really think, the amount of time I spend making art has been a problem for most of the relationships I've ever had in my life. And meeting somebody, I never thought I would get married because I never thought I would meet somebody who would want to be with somebody who spends that much time alone. But we were able to, you know, a lot of times I can go in and I can work, like I would work at the kitchen table while she's watching TV, or she would come and hang out in my studio area. Like, unfortunately, the cats took over the chair that we bought that I had in here specifically for my wife to hang out in. Um, but we find a way to make sure our lives are enmeshed, even when we both are doing all of the other things we need to do. And that's another thing, is that my wife, I think, is the same as me. She really likes her own personal space, her own personal time. And we both joked that we never would have met. Like, I used to say, I'm never going to meet the woman. Like, I would tell my male friends, I'm never going to meet the woman that I would, marry, because the woman I would marry is not going to be out in the clubs or in the bars. And oddly enough, they dragged me out one night on the same night that one of her friends dragged her out, so it was complete meeting by chance. Um, but we clicked, and we have remained clicked. But it's that desire to really, that shift between being a single person and just living your life to, melding your life with another person. It's a big change, and it was one that I was not ready to make for a large part of my life. All right, I think that I am gonna fill in these blacks. Honestly, I mean, yeah, I think I can. Like I said, there's going to be a little bit that I'll probably do afterwards off camera, a little bit of cleanup work. But I think, let me just paint in these little slash marks and fill in that last bit of black, and then we're done for today. So if anyone has any last minute comments, and don't ask me any deep ass philosophical shit that's going to keep me on for another half hour. But if anybody has any last minute comments or questions that they want me to answer, now's the time to put it in, because I'm gonna wrap this up here in about 5 minutes. The one thing I have to remember is, after I finish this, is to let this sit. Usually I try to let it sit overnight before trying to erase the pencil lines, because I've tried to erase the pencil lines after it was dry to the touch, but a little bit of the ink would still smear. I wonder if Wolverine has ever fought Black Panther. I remember seeing the covers for the new Ultimate Wolverine, and I don't know who the new Ultimate Wolverine is, and I'm not asking for spoilers or giving them, but the new costume now, it's looks like Wolverine's regular mask, like the upper part with the little, the headpiece and the eyes, but the his mouth is completely covered. And I thought that was sort of an interesting look because it kind of melded his look with Black Panther's look. And I can tell you from the little drops that I added in here, the little like speckles, I'm probably going to do that. I'm not going to go in and like paint, toothbrush splatter this whole thing, but I'm going to probably add a couple of drops of the same into, I'm going to fill all this with black. I'm probably going to add a couple of drops of white out. And I have for the past probably decade, I've resisted using the toothbrush splatter thing, which I don't know for those of you who've never tried it, but you just take a toothbrush and the same way I used a dropper and dropped ink in this little bottle cap, you just drop a little bit of ink in a toothbrush and then run your finger or a paintbrush over the bristles so that you're flicking little flecks of ink all over the paper, and it makes like a really cool splattery effect. And I've resisted doing it. It looks almost like an airbrush, except like an airbrush that's spraying or splattering. I've resisted using that effect for years because, I first saw it in high school. And it's one of those effects that when you learn it, it's kind of like learning not Gaussian blur. What's that lighting effect? That lens flare, that overused lighting effect that was used in all the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. It's an effect that it looks really cool, but when you overuse it, it kind of loses its power, and so many people use it that it's like it stops. It feels like a cheat, in the sense that it does look cool, but everyone knows it's what you're doing. It's like when everyone is using the same font to letter their comic. It's that kind of thing. But I've pulled away from it for so long that now I feel like I kind of want to just see what happens if I start using it again. There's a lot of things that I've pulled away from in order to try and force myself to really learn the fundamentals, to say, all right, without tricks, without gimmicks, can I just make a solid drawing? Can I make a good drawing? Can I light a figure? Can I draw an environment? And as I've said before, I still don't feel like I have mastered those things, but I've put a lot of work into getting better at them, to the point where things that I fought against, I can maybe lean into now, maybe play with a little bit. I'm trying to figure out if I were to do this on a drawing board instead of a flat table, how I would do it. When I say do it, I mean the inking, the moving the piece around the camera. And I think what I would probably do is tape this card to a larger piece of cardboard and just move that piece of board around and be able to make splatters and do all the different effects that I want. I mean, I still haven't figured out what my new drawing setup in the new studio is going to be going forward. I've been experimenting with a lot of different stuff over the past year, and I haven't found something that's quite, right yet, but I feel like this with the camera to the side, just it's like it just makes so much more sense. See, what I really wanted was for all of the white space in here to feel like it was painted in white as opposed to me painting around it. And I don't think that I nailed that look or that feel. And it makes me want to go back in, play with this, and just, keep fussing around. You know what? Let's just connect that. This is another one of those, if I make a mistake, so be it type things. You notice I went into full on inking mode. I was like, I stopped looking at the chat altogether, and I'm just like, all right, now I'm like in here trying to figure out how to finish him. I'm really trying to get in there and figure out what do I want the final lines to be. And I'm also getting dangerously close to that point where I'm like, okay, I need to stop adding lines and just let the piece be what it's going to be. Because I'm starting to add lines for the sake of adding them, and that's when you know you're in trouble. Like I need to just say, all right, this line is here because it represents his shape, and that's it. No more lines. See, that's dry brush right there, where the brush is like almost dry and it's not giving you a wet, solid line. It's giving you a little bit more of a ragged line. All right. I need to stop there. So I'm going to turn off the overhead light and see if this gives you a better look at the picture, because you're just getting glare from the camera. And I want to see if you guys get a better look at what the card actually looks like in reality if I turn off that glare and that reflection. So move the camera back a little bit more. Yeah. So yeah, you guys were seeing a lot more detail as I was working on it, but also you were getting the reflection of the light, the light on the gloss of the wet ink on there. So yeah, it is just about finished. I'll probably go in here and touch it up a little bit more, but this is the piece. And, just able to finish it in under 90 minutes from start to finish. That's not bad. Oh, all right. Let's see here. Back to the dating talk. Dylan says, I never understood dating. I never understood. It just feels like a waiting game to get in someone's pants. I need that friendship first and then the date. Well, I mean, I will tell you that, as somebody who, I think I definitely in my, let me this way. I know more men, and I'm not proud of this, but I was one of them for whom a lot of times when I was young, dating was about just the waiting to hook up. And I think it takes a certain level of maturity. Women mature emotionally faster than men, but also men don't just necessarily, we may not even reach the level of maturity that women do. Some men never emotionally evolve at all. And I don't say this as, coming off as like dude bashing. But men are socialized to be hunters and providers, and there's a certain level of ruthless self-preservation that's built into the way that we're socialized in society. And that can lead to a lot of what is considered toxic behavior. But I think that if you can combine the strength with empathy, you evolve into a more of a holistic being. But that is something that I don't know how much of that is something that happens over time naturally, and how much of that is something that actually requires work. Because I had to go to therapy to really like help me realize how to evolve as a complete person, how emotionally shut off I was. So when you talk, Dylan, about how the friendship needs to come first for you, I think there's a lot of guys for whom, if they're not friends at all with the person that they're dating or in a serious relationship with, they're like, no, this is my partner, these are my friends, and they're two separate worlds. And there are plenty of men for whom that's not just that's not just fine, that's ideal. I don't know. I can't tell people how to live their lives. And I'm not a relationship guru. All I know is that I feel like I have a good relationship, but even that, we work our asses off to communicate with each other on a daily basis. It's not like, oh wow, we picked the right person and it was beautiful and it's perfect. No. I think that the better the relationship you have, the more work it takes. And I think a lot of people, men and women, they want somebody for whom, oh, this person fits, so everything is perfect. And the older I've gotten, the more I've seen that's not true. The same way that you want to get good at art, and as you get better, you see how much more work you have to do. I feel that everything in life mirrors that, and that includes relationships. Like, the better my relationship with my wife gets, the more work we have to put into it. Because we grow together and we become more complex together. And it takes more work for us to be able to continue to support each other. So, a lot of people are like, I don't need one more thing to work at. But with us, I feel like we get more out of this. The more we put in, the more we get out. That's also true. It's true with art. It's also true with relationships. All right. Let me get my glasses back on. All right. So Dylan asks, did you watch the premiere of Jim's The Full Fungus? It was pretty good. I didn't watch the premiere. However, I am a Patreon subscriber to Jim's Patreon. So I already got to see the full movie. I want to say it was like a month ago that I watched it, maybe before that. Whatever it was, the last time that I had Jim on when he was announcing the Unicornians, I realized, oh, I need to go and watch this before I sit down and talk to Jim. Because it had been finished for a while now. And I was like, I need to get in there and watch it. But yes, I thought it was fantastic. I think it's amazing that, like, he's a filmmaker. I'm friends with a filmmaker, and it's like, he's still just goofy ass Jim, and he's just a fun, crazy guy. But like, he made this film, and yes, he's been making animated shorts and long animated series and projects for years, since I've known him. But I'm like, this is a film. This is a movie. It's a great movie. It's a great animated movie, and he made it. If you guys don't know, look up Jim Lujan on YouTube. His channel's on YouTube. Watch his other works. He's got a Patreon. He's got a new film out. It's and then I can't remember if it's Animation Plus. I forget the name of the platform that it's on. I want to say it's Animation Plus, but you can go watch it on there. It's amazing. But anyway, well, I'm putting it on there just so you can say Jim, so you guys can see Jim Lujan. In fact, let me see. Do I have his thing on here? Because I always love to shout out the homies. But yeah, jimluhan.com, which I believe just redirects to his YouTube channel. Go there, watch his work, find the link to go see his feature animated film, The Full Fungus, on what I want to say is Animation Plus. Definitely go check it. And yeah, Dylan confirmed it's Animation Plus. All right. Last couple of comments. Dylan says, I tried the toothbrush hack multiple times, but I never liked the results, so I stopped. Yeah, like I said, for me, I liked the results, but it's like I liked it too much. And that's another interesting thing about me is when I feel like something is too easy, I am wary of it because it starts feeling like a gimmick. But I also realize that sometimes I shut myself off from a lot of really useful tools with that mindset. So I'm trying to find a healthier balance. And Kent Jensen says, you're excellent at this. And I will tell you that is super kind. You've lit up my day. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. I don't know. I guess it touched me. It warmed me. But I love to hear that because I think like a lot of artists, I struggle with imposter syndrome. I think about all the things that I'm trying to do that I can't quite do or things that I want to get better at. So it is nice to just have someone say, hey, getting the pat on the back feels good. So thank you, Kent. Dylan says, I agree with your holistic statement in terms of relationships. Thank you, Dylan. I think that you're going to have a great relationship in your future. All right, guys. On that note, if you are new to the channel and you're just popping in and watching, hit that like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. And if you've been around, you're part of the gang, hit that like button. And if you know somebody that would enjoy conversations like this, talking about art and process and life and creative lifestyle and, all those things, then please send it to them, share it. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys spending time with me. Again, WonderCon, Anaheim, March 28th through 30th. I'll be in Artist Alley D22. And if you want to see more of this, if you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, sign up for my free monthly newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books or free digitally on Kindle, go to amazon.jeremy.net. All right, guys, again, thank you so much for spending time with me. That's it for now. Go be creative.